Welcome back to the freemilesmc, and we're today having a look at a very beautiful retro looking sport tourer that has almost an unbeatable price utility ratio on the used market. And with that, we're looking today at the Yamaha XJ900 F58L. And what a beautiful bike that is, with its beautiful fairing, square rounded headlight with the metal frame around it, and with this bike coming in many very beautiful different colors. This motorcycle has a 4-cylinder air and oil cooled engine with 891 cc, producing 98 horsepower and 81 newton meters of torque. And all that in a 244 kilo package. That's a lot because the engine is very heavy, and this bike has a few special extras. And also this bike has a 22-liter tank, so you get proper range out of this thing. And there are a few special things on the bike. This bike has a cardan, so no chain maintenance and basically just a drive shaft, which is usually kind of a BMW thing, but you have it here on this Yamaha, which is very incredible and has a 5-speed gearbox. This amazing bike has been provided by a subscriber of the channel, by Philip. Welcome to the channel.
Yeah, Miles. Hello.
Hello. Really nice to meet you. And how did you end up buying this machine?
Yeah, of course. I was searching for a bike on the cheaper end of side, and I bought it for about 600 euros nearby in my neighborhood, and it was in not a good shape, and I had to do a lot of maintenance myself and with the help of some friends, and carburetor and some things we can later discuss in detail. But I'm very satisfied with this bike. As you can see, I'm a shorter guy in comparison to you. Yeah. But I can handle this bike pretty well. I can almost flat-foot it, but it is on the heavier side. If it lays flat, it lays flat. You have to
get it up again. Yeah.
Get it up again, yes.
But actually that brings me really nicely into the next topic, and that is the seat height of the bike. The bike has a 79mm seat height, and on my body that roughly looks like this. For context, I am 6'5" or 1m95, and it's all pretty comfortable still, and I have a good knee angle, and I can completely flat foot the bike, and yeah, looks really, really nice. And let's get this thing on the road. So about now to drive onto the Autobahn, and we just saw how the bike handles city riding, and city riding it handles pretty well. The bike is very comfortable. It's nice to sit on. It's a proper bike. The bike feels very big in all the right ways, in the sense of I feel like I'm on a proper machine. And we're now getting going here on the Autobahn, and I'm going to follow Philip on his GSXR 1000. And wow, the bike gets going, especially 100, especially after 6,000 RPM. So we're going to see what the bike has. Let's go. After 6,000 RPM, the bike really gets going. Whoa. Yeah, and we see here he on his GSXR 1000, and the bike has an amazing wind protection. You have this proper pocket feel that you have on the bike, and wow, we are at 190. Oh my god, that went quick, and the bike feels right between refined and a bit sketchy at this perfect moment that people would describe as character. For my American viewers, we're roughly cruising right now at 120 miles an hour on like a over 30-year-old bike, and it's going very well. He also over the bridge bumps. This bike can handle some speed, especially with also the wind protection is so great. I'm literally not feeling the wind. We went up to 200 kilometers an hour just, and the 200 kilometers an hour happened just like that. Let's shift down again. Let's go. $180. And 200 on the speedo, and most likely that's like 190 something kilometers in real life. and it does that pretty well. The bike gets up to that speed relatively quickly, and the 5-gear transmission does a great job, and you will clock yourself at those speeds in no time. It's a very good experience. Wind is completely off your body. I don't feel a single bit of wind right now. And this windshield is even shortened. And as you see here, we're right now cruising in traffic at about 180, 190, and it's just very comfortable. Like, we can hang with the Audis, with the BMWs, it's all good. Yeah, let's go again. In 5th gear, the bike just pulls. It just pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls. Really, really nice. 200. Yeah, where's the speedometer? 210. The suspension starts to become a bit shaky on rough road, but for a bike this old, this feels very good. Very good. So we're again getting into the unrestricted area, and the bike just does its top speed like it's nothing. Like, you could cruise from Hanover all the way to Berlin at 120 miles an hour. No problem whatsoever. Okay, let's wait for Philip where he is on his GA6R, because I don't see him in the rearview mirror anymore. Oh, that's odd. Hopefully he's alright. I don't see a single headlight in my rearview mirror. Where is he? He's gone. Someone is giving me the flashing lights from behind. What is going on? Okay. I think it was his first time on a 180 horsepower bike, and I hope he managed to handle it. I hope he knew what he was doing. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. I cannot go up against traffic. I think he needs my help. I will call him. Fuck. Please tell me this is not happening. Hi, bist du okay? Kannst du mir deinen Standort schicken, dann komme ich zu dir. Okay, ich bin erstmal sehr froh, dass es dir gut geht. Ich habe gerade echt einen Schreck gekriegt, weil mir am Auto signalisiert, dass irgendwas ist bei dir, und ich habe schon gedacht, ach du Scheiße. Okay, so Philip's tire exploded, but he's fine. But having a tire explode at those speeds, we're just going 120 miles an hour or 200 kilometers an hour, and that's not fun whatsoever, and I'm very happy to hear that he's alright. Also very wild that just happened, because that actually shows how maybe not very smart Germans' whole like no speed limit policy is, because you can just have a tire explode at those speeds. The centripetal forces on a tire at that speed, of course most of the time it goes well. All these cars regularly do this kind of stuff, but it can still happen, and if it happens at 120 miles an hour, 210, 220 kilometers an hour, or even 300 or 186, which is, his bike is capable of those speeds, that shit is just no fun. And usually my barrier I never proceed over is 200 kilometers an hour during these test runs, because shit like that can happen. I'm very happy he's alright. So we get a small test of riding through the countryside right here to get back to Philip. And yeah, the landscape here is very nice, and the bike itself is handling very fine so far. The suspension feels hard, but not too hard. You don't have pain in your butt at all. And also the bike is with its 120 rear tire, which is a wild tire size for, by the way, a bike with 98 horsepower. Like, that's a crazy amount of power for such a small contact patch. And like, the bike is so nimble because of it, as it doesn't require much lean, and you can carry 80-90 kilometers an hour through a highway off ramp. So that's pretty impressive, and you can do it confidently, not in the way of, oh, I'm pushing my bike so hard. No, you can just, you know, confidently, passionately ride that, and that's nice. This bike in general is very, very sports orientated. Also, the brakes are very fine with its 235mm dual front disc. All in all, very great package we're having here. Like, this is what I want a sport tourer to be, because even though it's comfortable and I sit nicely, this is still feels like a sports bike. Also here on the cross-country road and a bit of the turns, it rides very fine. Like, the long swept turns is where this thing feels very at home and comfortable. It has enough power to pass as well. It's really, really nice. And for this being a very old bike, you have to look at what you're doing, because if you don't look down on the speedometer with this amount of wind protection, like I earlier didn't plan to go that fast on the Autobahn actually, and it just happened because you don't feel the wind whatsoever. Also here on the smaller backcountry roads, you really feel how nice the 120 tire is and really does handle. And overall, I have to say this is a pretty cool machine. Just also from its shifting and then like riding, it is superbly fun. It is such a nice bike, and the sound, just all in all, a very good package. For that money, Jesus Christ, is just good. By the way, again, you can buy these for the price of a used PS4 on the used market. You can get them for 400, 350. Those bikes are dirt cheap, and they're nice. They're nice, and they're just good. The bike has a pretty substantial sprint from 100 to 200 kilometers an hour, and it definitely outdoes other bikes with more power in that regard because of its gearing. We recently tested the Honda CBR 600F on the channel, and that bike is nice, powerful, and it's quick, but the bike needs some time between 100 and 200 kilometers an hour, and you really need to work it there. And I think this is because of the 5-gear transmission and how the bike is geared in that way. But after the 200, the bike is then done, because that's how far the gearing goes, and the bike with its power could go quicker. The gearing is just like, nah, we're good for now. So let's find Philip. I see him over there. Alright, and in one piece. Bei dir alles gut? Just for the English speaking viewers, what just happened? His tire exploded at 240 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
That's 150 miles an hour, and the tire just goes boom.
Absolutely.
Fuck. Okay. Yeah.
It went boom, but it went, and I had a feeling. I thought maybe I'm in some, I don't know.
Happy that you're all good.
The tarmac isn't good or something, but yeah. And then it goes like this, and I thought I better pull out.
Yeah. So the roadside assistance is here. Maybe they can actually fix the tire. That would be pretty sick. There was no way to replace the tire quickly, so we just had to tow the bike. Let's get back to the Yamaha XJ600. And actually, after going a bit quicker on the Autobahn, I want to point something out, as this bike takes sport tourer seriously, because many of the old sports bikes really had this in the pocket feel of where you would sit very low and then would have the fairing basically almost around you. And to me, it's a very cool feeling. I really love that. It is something that I am really after. I had that on my first bike, the Yamaha FZR 600, and the way that the body position is on this bike is basically a tad bit more comfortable than on a Super Sport, but it's reminiscent when driving off something like a FZR 1000 or FZR 600, and that's really, really nice, and I really love that because you're just in the pocket of this bike. And I love that the way that they handled the body position, also with like how the mirrors are cut out here. This Sport Tourer takes the sport part pretty serious, and I love that about the bike. It's pretty cool that the bike has this kind of stance. Just for context, this is how you basically look when you're like in the pocket of the bike. Let's get out of the rain and get back to some curvy roads.
Lately I've been staring at the dark. Am I in a demon listen too hard. Struggle with the pain inside my heart. Wish I didn't care about what she wants to say. She wants to say. She wants to say. She wants to say.
After taking the bike for a spin in the rain, I stopped at a typical biker imbiss and had some food and really got to appreciate the beautiful look of this proper vintage bike.
She wants to say. She wants to say what you want to say. She wants to say. She wants to say. She wants to.
The thing with bikes like the Yamaha XJ900 is that a lot of people think this bike is very beautiful and it evokes a lot of memories in some older folks. So you will constantly have people come up to you to talk to you about machines like that. And the Yamaha XJ900 is one of those bikes. After a small bit of food, we're now here back on the road, and here in the rain, it's not the nicest to drive, and we cannot really push the bike completely now in the turns at all, but it's still such a nice experience, because those old motorcycles, they give you something different a bit. You know, you smell the motorcycle, you smell the gas, you smell how the water smells on the hot engine. You have this like very raw feel, with also like then fidgeting with the choke and everything, and having to turn off the lights for the bike to fire up, and all that type of stuff with the very small batteries that these ones do have. That's one of the disadvantages. But all in all, it's really, really nice, and it's like such a nice classic bike experience. You know, you don't need to whoops, the rear brake is locked up here in the very wet road. Of course, the bike does not have ABS and anything, and for someone who's new into motorcycles, that can be a bit sketchy. But I feel like it is still absolutely possible to ride for someone with not the most amount of riding experience, if you roughly know what you're getting into. And on all, the bike rides very nicely. Of course, the 120 tires, they are fine if you drive them normally like we did earlier, in dry conditions through the turns. Then the bike is very nimble, and also you can change directions relatively quickly without a lot of lean angle. While this right here, now in the rain, is not as fun anymore, as then the really small contact patch mixed with 30-year-old technology can become a bit sketchy, but that's literally the age of the bike. All from the overall riding feel that we're having here. I have to say, this is one of my favorite bikes that I've ever ridden on the channel. This is actually so cool, and I wish the weather would be better so we could actually really try it out a bit more and really see how far the thing goes in the turns. We did that a bit earlier, but not to the extent that I would have wanted. But from what I've experienced with the bike until now, I'm a big fan. I love this. This is really, really cool. This is really nice, and I have a fable for this kind of feel in general, as I started on bikes like that, and yeah, I just love it. And especially considering that those can be had for 400 to 650 bucks. Yeah, this is pretty good. But of course, when you get a bike for this kind of price, you need to do some work yourself. So I now just returned from the test ride with the Yamaha XJ900, and I just said that you really have to know a bit how to work on a motorcycle to get this bike. That's not completely true. You need to do that and need to slowly learn that, but you can actually learn that with basically no prior knowledge, as you basically did. And how did that go for you?
Yeah, first of all, I'm a musician and definitely not a mechanic. And everything mechanically I have completely self-taught myself with books and stuff like YouTube, of course, YouTube videos, and no mechanical experience whatsoever. So I had to completely teach myself everything from the ground up.
That's actually really, really cool and really impressive, and it's, I think, also a good news that the resources, all the YouTube videos and the books for this bike are there, because yes, finding an owner's manual is one thing, but finding all the tutorials online is not always the case for all bikes, and sometimes they're just like a dude who set up one camera and doesn't show anything in particular, and it then doesn't really help you. But what were the little like hassles that you had when basically working on this bike? As most likely, rule of thumb with every bike that's in this price range, 400 bucks to 600 bucks, most of the times carburetors need to be done and brakes are seized and some little bits of rubber and whatever that you can easily do. So how was it working on these things?
Yeah, of course, great, because great accessibility everywhere. And the first thing I had to do was the front calipers were seized, badly seized. I had to completely rebuild the 2 front calipers with rebuild kits online. Not a big problem. And yeah, this was the first task for me. And then I had to completely rebuild the carburetors. They were also completely gummed up and gooed up. So I had to clean every nuance, every pilot jet and everything. So yeah, this was the big task after that.
That actually sounds pretty alright, and that you managed to pull that off completely on your own is very impressive, and it also shows you can do that too. If you now don't know how to work on bikes, you can get this bike, bring some patience, and you will manage to make it work. How much money did you actually invest to get the bike on the road?
It's hard to say, but I think definitely less than 400 euros.
Okay, so all in all, we are then 800, 900 bucks. But one thing,
I don't know.
one thing, you've gotten a new engine for the bike, which then of course is a big one, because actually one of the small weak points that we talked about earlier behind the scenes is that the bike has a problem with its intake manifolds and the screws that are connecting the intake manifolds to the engine. Those are pretty weak, and those get easily stripped, and you find loads of engine parts online with those ones stripped that you cannot use. So if you buy one of these bikes, exchange these ones as soon as you have the chance, because they can cost you 150 bucks, and that basically can really get out of budget then. And on top of that, you can work on this bike yourself also with not a lot of prior experience, is the fact that this bike is super reliable. The bike has a very, very reliable engine which easily can go over 100,000 kilometers and is also powered with a cardan. So there's not a lot to go wrong. And on top of that, the longer that especially a 4-cylinder engine runs, the more CO2 that they're going to produce. And when you then have to meet emissions regulations from like getting your roadworthiness, that can become a pain in the ass. And this bike in Europe is a lot of them have been produced before the year 1989, because this bike has been built between 1985 and 1989. So you will find a lot of them who do not have to obey by emission standards, which is incredibly cool, as it basically reduces your roadworthiness test even here in Germany to just like, does it run, does it brake, done. And that's actually pretty nice, because that takes a lot of headache out of this situation. Yeah, apart from that, it's a really, really beautiful bike, and also it's a really nice base for a retro bike build like a cafe racer or anything, especially with the 18 front inch tires and 18 rear inch tires, as it's basically the same size of like a bonnet, well, not the same size exactly, but it gives the same look as on a Bonneville or on a Interceptor if you would do anything to the bike.
Yeah, definitely. The base platform is super great for a cafe racer or a scrambler maybe, and if you search images on Pinterest or something like that, you find really attractive builds, and yeah, I don't think that it's gonna be expensive either. So
yeah, I fully agree, and also especially I took my XJ600 4BR a lot off road because it was cheap, you know. But like, this bike actually has an 18-inch front wheel, so it could be even more capable there. But one thing I want to point out at the talk of turning these ones into a cafe racer, these bikes are already pretty beautiful stock, so there's a lot of value in just like keeping the bike as is. In fact, if you want a cafe racer and you're currently looking at cafe racer builds as your first bike, which is a terrible idea, but many people do that because they want the cafe racer look, just buy this bike, because it already has the fairing, it has the square front light with the metal around it that looks super 80s, and the whole 80s style is coming back anyway, with the EVs all looking like from Blade Runner. So I think this is already a very fine looking bike, especially in some of the stock colorways that this bike comes in. It is just a beautiful machine, and even the way it's standing here completely stock, also with the enormous blinkers, I love it. I'm very, very happy.
I pretty much feel, when I'm on the bike, sometimes I pretty much feel like Tom Cruise.
I 100% get it, because you feel cool on this bike. You could buy a classic motorcycle that has appreciated a lot for thousands of bucks, or you could just buy this and have the same experience, because this level of coolness is a lot cheaper and you only pay 600 bucks for it, and it has all the sporty feel as well. I love that about the bike. I wish I could have ride it a bit harder, but then we got surprised by the rain. But like, the bike has the proper sport feel, and it is not just a sport tourer how you think of a Yamaha FZ06 or something. It is a proper sports bike that is touring capable, and I really love that about the bike. The bike feels big. I love the instruments. I love how it has the little crosses on the instruments. I love how it has 3 different gauges, 1 gauge for the fuel and the digital clock. It looks so cool how also the gauges are not moving with the fairing, but it still has a fairing. It's all in all just really, really nice, and there's a lot of nice things that can be said about this bike. And it is an insane package for 600 bucks. Like 400 to 600 bucks gets you this. This is incredible. It gets pretty hard to name a bike that's better when it comes to reliability, usability, and styling. I think almost up to $2,000. Of course, you then can get better like naked bikes and so on at some point, but like getting something proper with upside down suspension and all the fancy stuff and like all the cool stuff that would actually improve this, apart from a bigger tire size, gets pretty difficult. And especially when you're talking about reliability, this thing is incredibly reliable and you can build it yourself. It's just an amazing bike. So yeah, that's I think all, and thanks for watching. Definitely like and subscribe, check out the Patreon, and if you have a motorcycle for me to review in Eastern Europe, feel free to write me an email.